All right, and we are back here on the GSMC football podcast. And for the second part of the show, we're going to now get into talking about Kirk Cousins and his return to Minnesota to take on his former team, the Minnesota Vikings. And this is coming off of a performance that was by far his worst of the year. No touchdowns, 4 interceptions against the Chargers. Falcons end up losing that game 17-13, and they are now tied on top of the NFC South with the Buccaneers, who are starting to get healthy. So this is a big game for the Falcons. I mean, this is also a big game for the Vikings as well because they're trying to keep pace with the Lions for the NFC North. They still got a chance at that. Vikings coming off of that comeback win against the Cardinals. Since that start, they're still a good team, but they were kind of playing over their heads a little bit. But look, they're still 10-2, and this is going to be a dangerous team come playoff time. But they got some tough games remaining on the schedule. I still look at this game as tough for them, but I kind of lean towards the Vikings in this matchup. You got the Bears coming up again at home, the Seahawks in Seattle. That's a tough place to play. You got the Packers at home, and then you're at the Lions, and that could decide who wins the division. So, the Vikings got to keep winning games to keep up with the Lions to at least have a shot to win the division at the end of the year. But looking at this game, though, I mean, the Falcons have really struggled. Mainly Kirk Cousins has struggled. And I went through his stats over the course of the last few games. He has not thrown a touchdown pass since November 3rd against the Cowboys. That was a month ago. He hasn't thrown a touchdown pass in a month. I mean, that's unbelievable. Since then, his last 3 games, no touchdowns to 6 picks. And the Falcons have been such a weird team because there'll be a game where it looks like they figured it out. And you're like, okay, all right, this is where Kirk Cousins gets it going. Still trying to shake off the rust from the Achilles injury. And then all of a sudden, he puts a performance together like that against the Chargers or against the Seahawks where he had, a few turnovers in that game. And they lost by 3 scores. He's been inconsistent. But now he's been consistent, and by consistent, he's been consistently poor with how he's played. And it's kind of led to some people calling for Michael Penix to get a shot. And I want to see what happens at the end of the year because, you still owe Kirk Cousins a lot of money. You still got 3 years left on that contract, but it's possible that maybe he ends up getting traded and the Michael Penix era begins next year for the Falcons. I mean, I think it all depends on how this season ends. If they end up missing the playoffs and Kirk Cousins continues on this downward trajectory, then I think we will see Michael Penix. But, if Kirk Cousins finds a way to bounce back, like if he went into Minnesota and he beats the Vikings and he throws for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns, I mean, that definitely would drop people back a little bit on the Michael Penix talk. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think he's going to continue to struggle. He has not played well on the road this year, other than, against his divisional opponents. Well, not the Saints, but against the Bucs and the Panthers. He has not played well on the road this year. And, well, he also had that game-winning drive against the Eagles as well. But if Saquon doesn't drop that pass, then that game ends. But recently, against the Broncos, that was not good. The Saints, that was not a good performance either. So, and now you're going up against a 10-win team in the Vikings, and that defense knows Kirk Cousins. That team knows how to play against him. They went up against him in practice all the time, so they know what his strengths and weaknesses are. And he doesn't have the supporting cast like he had in Minnesota. Now, I'm not saying that the players that he has in Atlanta are, not good. They are good players. Drake London's had a good year. They have a pair of good running backs. Darnell Mooney's had a good year. Kyle Pitts has had a few games that he's done well in, but not consistent enough. But the Vikings have the superior talent. And Sam Darnold has played well this year. He has definitely earned to get a chance to get paid this offseason. He's going to have a big contract. Not like a $60 million contract, but he's going to get paid this offseason. A team is going to want to sign him, to some kind of multi-year deal. And he deserves it because he has played well. Now, there have been some games where not so much, but overall he's put together a nice season. And when you're surrounded with the talent that, Kirk Cousins used to be surrounded by, except for Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones is a new piece. And you're in the right system. I mean, yeah, I'm not really surprised by how well Darnold has done. It's because you got one of the best receivers in the NFL in Justin Jefferson. You got a decent number 2 in Jordan Addison. T.J. Hockenson's back. Aaron Jones is still a productive running back. And Kevin O'Connell's a good head coach. And then you're backed behind a good defense. The Vikings have a good roster. I said that before the year started. The Vikings have a very good roster. I just didn't know how the quarterback play was going to be. That's why I didn't really have them winning a lot of games. And also they play in a very tough division. But they have played. Sam Darnold has played well, and that has made the difference. Because, I mean, if Nick Mullins is the starting quarterback week 1, I don't think they're 10-2. But it's because Sam Darnold has played well that they're in the position that they're in right now. And they still have a chance at the NFC North. And they have to win this game to keep pace with the Lions, and they'll be going up against a familiar face in Kirk Cousins. So Kirk Cousins finished his Vikings career. He had a passer rating of 101.2 with 23,265 passing yards, 171 touchdowns, and 55 interceptions in 88 games for the Vikings. The Vikings signed him going into the 2018 season, and they didn't make the playoffs. He was okay his first season. 2019, the Vikings ended up making the playoffs, and he picked up his first playoff victory. That was in New Orleans. That was in overtime. He hit that pass to Adam Thielen to set up the game-winning touchdown to Kyle Rudolph. I remember watching that game. And I did say, because I was not a big Kirk Cousins supporter, I think it was because I was a little bit salty of, losing my fantasy championship back in, I think it was 2015, because he played the first half, did really well, and then they benched him, so I had it out for him. But also because everybody said how great he was, but the playoff resume wasn't there. But he did pick up the playoff win against the Saints, and I did say if he did win that game, I would get a Vikings jersey of him, but I never did that. So I didn't keep my word. But 2018, he had 30 touchdowns to 10 picks, so he did have a good season. Then he had 26 touchdowns to 6 picks in 2019. They made the playoffs. 2020, 35 touchdowns to 13 picks. 2021, he had 33 touchdowns to 7 picks. 2022, when they made the playoffs and they were a 12-win team, he had 29 touchdowns to 14 picks. And he was on his way to having a really good season last year, but suffered the Achilles injury. Had 18 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. Now, some of the years that they didn't make the playoffs, the Vikings defense was not good. It was not good. He continued to put up big numbers, but remember the game on Christmas when Alvin Kamara had 6 touchdowns? I mean, the Vikings put up 30-plus points, but the Saints put up 50-plus points because Kamara had such a big game. He had a solid career with the Vikings, and, I don't know how the rest of his career is going to play out. I guess maybe, next year he'll look a little bit better because he's another year removed from the Achilles injury. I mean, I think that's still a problem. But, I mean, some of the interceptions that he had against the Chargers were inexcusable. I mean, the one where, again, it was like jackpot. He's throwing it up into the end zone, and you got all these guys around. And, I mean, maybe he was trying to throw it away, but, that got intercepted. The pick six, that was not good. It has been a disappointing season for Kirk Cousins. It's been an up-and-down season, but it's been overall disappointing. The Falcons brought him in because they thought he was going to be the one that takes them over the top. Because that's what they've been missing these last few years as a quarterback. You have the right skill position players on offense, and, they made moves on defense. You got a couple of good safeties back there. a good corner. You brought in Matthew Judon this season, and it's been a disappointment. Now, that doesn't mean that they're out of it. They still got a chance to win this division, but they got some tough games down the stretch here, and that starts with the Vikings, who are one of the best teams in the NFC. And then after that, you still got some more divisional games, but you play the Raiders in Vegas. And again, look, the Raiders are not a good team. They should win that, but you never know. Then you got the Giants, the Commanders, and then the Panthers to finish it off. So, I had them at 10 wins. I think even if you lose this game, you could still get the 10 wins, but it's really going to all come down to how Kirk Cousins plays. If he does not play well, they're not making the playoffs. The Bucs have a lighter schedule coming up. They do have the Chargers at one point, not this week, but next week. So, that's a tough game for the Bucs. And then they got the Cowboys, the Panthers again, and then the Saints. So, I don't think any of those games are gimmies. I think they should beat the Raiders this week. Although Mike Evans is a little banged up and who knows if he plays or not. He hasn't practiced this week. But maybe they're just giving him rest and being careful with him. But, you got the Bucs got the Chargers, which is tough. Then they're at the Cowboys, which I think they should win. But, Cowboys have been playing better. Give them a little bit of credit. They've been playing somewhat better. Then you got the Panthers who have been playing better, and the Saints have been playing better too. They beat the Bucs in Tampa last year. I brought that up this week. So it's going to be a tight race. It could take, once again, 9 wins to win this division. It's just unfortunate for the Bucs because they're 0-2 against the Falcons this year, and had they not lost both games, they'd be in a better spot. But also had a ton of injuries. So we'll see how that all goes, but I'm going to take the Vikings. Back to this game, I'm going to take the Vikings to win this game. I think they win. I'm going to say they win 31-20. I think that's the final score. I just think they're going to give Kirk Cousins a hard time, and I think Kirk Cousins is going to turn the ball over because that's what he's done a lot. I think he will break that streak of not throwing a touchdown pass. I think he gets at least one in this game, but I just think the Vikings are the better team, and that's a hostile environment that he's going into. And he knows because he's played there, played a large portion of his career there. So he knows how that crowd gets. But I just think, they're going to struggle. They're going to have to lean on Bijan Robinson in this game. But, I like the Vikings to win this matchup and cover the spread as well. So, but let me know what you guys think about this game. Do you think Kirk Cousins goes in and pulls off the upset, or do you think the Vikings improve to 11-2 on the season? Let me know in the comments. So before we go to break, just want to remind you guys once again to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to hit that super chat button in the chat if you want to see me acknowledge any thought or comment you may have throughout the live broadcast. It makes the show more lively, more entertaining between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. We appreciate your guys' viewership each and every day, so any contribution you can make to the show means the world to us as we put out content for you guys each and every day. And also the other way to help out the show is by going to the link at the bottom of the show segment on the ticker, GSMCPodcast.net. That is GSMCPodcast.net. So when we come back from our next break, we will preview another game, and that is the Buffalo Bills taking on the Los Angeles Rams. We'll talk about the implications of that game when we return from our next break. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.